they, would be competing with people like Apple, Microsoft, Google, companies that were huge and had a lot of cash to burn. So they, would have like some tough competition. They also noticed, and this is one of the questions of, what Silicon Valley was missing at the time, by going at office hours at Y Combinator, before they started discussing, these office hours are, different companies that are starting there that have the same mentor, get to tell the challenges and opportunities they're, facing that week, and kind of talk to the mentors about what they think they should do. And at the beginning of a lot of them, people would be discussing, how to get a credit card and how hard it was to get a credit card, and how banks were requiring a personal guarantee or a security deposit. And they were like, you know what? Instead of requiring personal guarantee, security deposit, or doing any of that, let's focus on what matters. Let's underwrite these businesses based on the cash balance that these companies have, and give them 10 to 20% of what their cash balance is. Let's, aside from that, build our entire technology from scratch so that we can offer better features and better integrations than everyone else. So for example, sign up that takes 5 minutes. So 70% of our customer base today of like new card holders today get their card or virtual card within 15 minutes of a first applying to Brex, and then 2 days later they get their cards arriving in the mail. And let's do that, and let's offer some like different features like automatic receipt upload. That would be a lot better. So they decided to pivot from augmented reality back to what their original background was, which is payments. And they told me about this story. They told me about the investors that were behind, getting behind them, and it was just very compelling to me. And I ended up 1 week later joining them at Brex as the first hire. And at Silicon Valley, I was new to it. My idea was to be in the consumer goods space. But being there, I got to interact with a lot of different people and a lot of different companies and areas, because the company was growing so fast that as the first employee, I went through a lot of different areas in the first year. So from financial modeling to regulation, then to sales, recruiting, and customer support. And that gave me some insight over Silicon Valley, and that kind of gave me some perceptions that, some things that I wasn't expecting, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. And again, this is kind of my personal opinion. I have a tremendous respect and admiration for the work that's being done there. So it's just my perception of what I think the valley of innovation sort of missing out on. The first thing I noticed was that even though the companies were pursuing innovation and like disruption through their products and through their main ideas and what they were selling, everyone was pretty much doing the same things too, and pretty obvious things within their own processes and within their own operations. So there's 3 specific examples of that. One is, and I'll share with you, one is on marketing, one is in recruiting, and one in customer experience. On marketing, for instance, a lot of people are still doing their own, Facebook ads, Google ads, printing tons of t-shirts that look pretty much exactly alike. And we saw that these mass emails and these ads can only go that far, and that if we wanted to grow as fast as we could and dominate the startup space in Silicon Valley, we would need to be different. And we in-house, we were coming up with some ideas of what that could be. The first one was outdoor marketing. So we did something that it's very uncommon for a lot of early stage companies, which is billboards. We went around city and we purchased pretty much every single main billboard. We have like over 50 different bus stops covered in Brex. We dominated Silicon Valley. If you get a chance to go there these next few days, all you will see is Brex. I've had friends come to me saying, Larissa, you guys are starting to invade my personal space. And we just became known for the billboards, and that became part of our brand and our, like a signature of our brand. It started being pretty simple, so pretty much like, first corporate credit card for startups, Brex.com. And then because we became famous for it, we started, taking a little bit more risk. So one of the things that we did, there was a tweet from either a cardholder or someone who's seen the billboards playing around with the joke of the name that reminds them of Brexit, and saying, oh, I would love these billboards to say, don't charge it, Brexit. And we really liked the joke, and we decided to embrace it, because that's something that we hear so much, that it's better to embrace it than to fight it. And the campaign for billboards that we just launched this week says, don't charge it, but don't Brexit. The first corporate credit card for startups, not the political disaster. And this is the new billboards that's going to cover San Francisco. Also on the billboard side, there was a huge one that is placed on one of the main highways. And nobody ever uses it because it's covered by a huge tree. Half of the billboard's covered by a huge tree, so nobody wants to use it because they think it's a waste of money. And the city won't cut the tree because apparently it's a very special tree. So it's there. And we got it for a very, very cheap price, almost nothing. And we decided to use it to announce or pre-announce our rewards program, which we're launching, the first, tailored for startups rewards program at the end of the month. And we used half of the billboard to write Brex rewards better than a money tree. And on the other side, we drew a money tree that gets partially covered by the actual tree. So it kind of resonates because it's the billboard people know as the tree billboard. So we'll continue to do that. And it's funny because when we do a lot of these talks in San Francisco, people ask, hey, like, whose idea was that? How much did it cost? Why did you guys spend so much money in it? Is it worth it? You can't even measure ROI. And our answer to that is to ask the audience to try to guess how much we spent. And their guesses vary between 3 million and 5 million. And in fact, the price wasn't even close to $300,000. So we don't have like as effective of a way to measure ROI on that as like ads would, for instance, or clickbait. But we do have a little window on our application asking how you heard about Brex, and the share that says through your billboards have been increasing, and that's something that we want to continue with. Another thing that we noticed as well on marketing was, this, as I said, emails and mass emails don't really work. You send 20,000 and maybe one person will reply saying, I'm not interested. And we decided to go a little bit more targeted, but be more effective with what we were doing. So we tested a campaign that had very, very good results. We ordered 500 boxes of brigadeiro. This is a typical handmade Brazilian chocolate that, it's very good, and it's a little bit more of a sweeter version of fudge in a ball. And we ordered 500 boxes, and we found 500 different companies between seed, pre-seed, Series A, and we hand-delivered, within a walking distance radius from our office, and we hand-delivered those boxes. And we chose strategically so that these companies would be like situated in the middle of a WeWork, or in the middle of a co-working space, where we would be targeting not only the company that was receiving the chocolates, but people who were around that would generate a little bit of buzz. And we had a very good response from that. So 30% response saying that they're interested, and that's crazy, and that the emails and LinkedIn messages don't come anywhere close to that response rate. Also on that note, another thing that people kind of still do a lot of the same is on recruiting. So LinkedIn questions, LinkedIn messages, also mass emails are very common. Our software engineers get bombarded by these requests, from other companies every single day, and they don't really open. People don't really respond to those. I did recruiting at Brex for 3 months, and that was the first thing we attempted, and the response rates are terrible on that. But we noticed that when we were able to get these people through the door, then we had an 80% chance of someone that we wanted to bring of getting their yes. And that was even before our public launch. That was even before Brex was, anywhere listed in the internet. Because before then, before June 19th, we were really flying under the radar and avoiding competition as much as we could until we were far enough that we had like a competitive advantage. And so by noticing that, we're like, okay, so we need to somehow get these people through the door. And the way that we found to do that was very convincing was by writing handwritten letters. Started writing handwritten letters, and they were a bit mysterious. They had some details about their backgrounds, like, oh, you did this or that at such and such company that we think, is really impressive. And we would list the name of some of our investors. We were able to get backed by some pretty good investors, like the PayPal Mafia, so Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Carl Pascarella, he was the CEO of Visa for over 20 years. And we would mention these, investors as part of the secret project that was happening on the payment space, and how we wanted to kind of count with their help and how their background had inspired us. And our, response rate just increased a lot more, like crazily. So some innovation there, some innovation of their own processes and operations are something that's like missing on the Valley. The third thing was within customer experience. I was in sales, and I was the first full-time salesperson at Brex. And at some point, you have so many customers that you start having a lot of questions and a lot of, just like issues that they have and that they don't really know how to work. And when you see yourself spending most of your time answering questions to current customers and to actually acquiring new ones. And at some point, I said, Enrique, Pedro, we need to get support. We need to get customer support. I go to events and I see myself sitting in the corner answering the phone or answering my emails, and we need to get someone so that we can sell again, get back to selling. And we were like, well, you know what? You're here for the longest, so why don't you go start the customer support area? And I've never really said no to a task. I think part of being a growing company is to be able to do anything. So from office management to financial modeling to recruiting and customer experience, I've pretty much done it all in less than a year at Brex. So I went, but because I knew nothing about the area, I went to try to learn at what later stage companies were doing, what companies that had good customer support scores were doing, and what early stage companies were doing, so we could benchmark ourselves. And I learned that a lot of them were treating customer support as something that they needed to have at least to a bare minimum, and not necessarily an opportunity to differentiate themselves. They would say, you know what, like at the early stage, really focus on the product, get a couple salespeople to answer emails every 24 hours or so, and that's enough for now. You really need to focus on the product. But being on the financial space, a space that so many people are so frustrated with the services their banks provide, we really wanted to use that to differentiate ourselves. And from day one, we were very aggressive with our SLAs, with our targets for support. Just share a little bit with you guys, like we on the already first 2 weeks of doing support, we installed email, chat, and phone, and we had some very aggressive SLAs. So for chat, you have to have a first reply in less than 1 minute, and you need to have above 95% of customer satisfaction rate. With email, you have 1 hour to give a first reply, and that cannot be an automatic reply. It has to be something, oh, hey, like we're already looking at this, we think we know what the issue is, give us a couple hours and we'll get back with an answer. You had 3 hours to actually solve the problem if that was something that does not need the help of engineering, does not need to be escalated to engineering. And you have 24 hours if that's something that needs to be escalated to engineering. So very aggressive SLAs, customer first, absolutely, 100% of the time. And we were surprised to see, even before our launch, when we did our first NPS survey, which is the Net Promoter Score, or a score from negative 100 to 100, where 0 is fine, average, 50 is very good, 70 is considered world-class. And our product was still in beta, and we got a 68 NPS just because our support was so good. And people knew that even though maybe some of aspects of the product back then weren't really ready, they would have help immediately if they needed something. Now, after the launch, with the product ready, with instant onboarding, as I mentioned at the beginning, we were able to raise that above 70s, and we continue to be extremely aggressive to have customer support be also a strong part of our brand and a strong part of our culture within Brex. So these are, that's point one of some of the ways in which people aren't really, or companies aren't really focusing beyond the innovation they want to provide on their product. They should also look a little bit more into their own internal processes and their own internal operations and how they could differentiate themselves there. That was one of the things that surprised me about Silicon Valley. The second one was, and this could be a little bit of a polemic opinion, but I saw that there isn't really a truly free flow of ideas. A lot of the conversations in Silicon Valley prize comfort above truth, and you want to come to mutual understanding rather than like pursuing, to quote Larry Summers, truly improved understanding of things. There are certain ideas that you just can't have, of certain opinions that you just can't express because it's so strongly considered politically incorrect. And of course, you need to be considerate of everyone's backgrounds are different, everyone's experiences are different. But if you like label certain points of views as just unspeakable or of, not appropriate, you are missing so much in debate, and you're missing so much on what could become a productive discussion on something that can lead to the development of ideas and of practices that can, bring development. So that was for sure one of the things that we've noticed. And the point 3 is also related to that a little. So even though Silicon Valley seems like a place of a lot of diversity, you would see that there's, sure, people are from different backgrounds, but cultural conversion is a lot stronger than cultural diversity. So you see people from crazy backgrounds, but at the end they end up thinking the same. They have the same lifestyle. They work at the same places, have very similar jobs. And at the end, they like the same things and they discuss the same things. And at Brex, we really, really value just like diversity of background. Of course, we're above all looking always for the best people, but we want to make sure we have diversity of opinion, that we let everyone express themselves freely about their views of the world and about their views of our own product and our own company. Every Wednesday, we hold our all-hands meeting, and we have these anonymous questions that you can literally ask anything. And Michael and Enrique and Pedro and I need to answer those questions. It could be about the company, it could be about our vision, it could be about certain decisions that were made. And we really encourage that. We have a 65% international team. We have over 55 people now, and around now 12 different nationalities. I know because we count the flags, we have the different flags. And our view about that is that in order to build a truly global company, you do need to have diversity of opinion and a true diversity of culture and of backgrounds, because otherwise you're serving your own community. And if you want to bring your product from the valley to the world, you need to make sure that you are truly serving different backgrounds and ideas and opinions as well. So these are some of the things that I've noticed, and as I said, these are my own perception of the valley. And I hope that was kind of helpful and enlightening to you, especially those of you who don't necessarily work at the Valley or as closely to the Valley. And I would like to open for some questions now, if you have any. Yeah.
In your bio, you talked a bit about some of the things you do to attract and help international people get into your company. I think it's a wonderful strategy. But what are the challenges and ways you've adapted to that?
So some of the ways that we attract them, first of all, is we have two strong things in our recruiting system. One is that referral is huge. So we encourage referral. We say that it's everyone's job to recruit, not just the recruiter, which we just hired an internal recruiter. And that, since we already have a pretty diverse background from there, we end up having, these open channels, right, through different communities and different countries and etc. Two is that we praise story and hard work and whatever they've done throughout their lives, concrete things, over credentials and resume and the list of companies that are expected if you want to be considered a good professional in the Valley or whatever. So I'll tell you a little bit about the story of our CTO. He's a 21-year-old from Brazil who Enrique met when he was 14. He started programming, Enrique started programming because his mom wouldn't pay for his Ragnarok online game. So he started hacking to be able to play the game for free. And there's these different online forums that people would talk about how to build a compiler and how to do this or that. And he needed at some point to build this compiler thing. And he asked in the group, hey, who can help us with that? And this kid, Jonathan, replied, said, oh, I can help you with that. Like in 1 week, I'll have it to you. And in less than a week, he turned out something that was perfect. Enrique was very impressed. And being kind of like Enrique always has this thing of wanting to connect with good people. So he wanted to talk to this kid immediately. And he said, hey, let's connect. Give me your email. Let's chat. How old are you, by the way? And he said, well, I'm 11. And Enrique was like, there's no way in the world that you are 11. Like, tell me the truth. Why are you lying? Like, there's no point in lying. And he said, no, I'm telling you, I'm 11. So he was like, okay, so if you are, then turn your webcam. Like, let's talk. I want to see. And he said, well, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere in Midwest Brazil. I don't really have a webcam. I barely have internet. And Enrique wasn't really believing the story, kind of let it go, thought, I don't want to be associated with someone who's like lying about their age, right, being a liar. So he, went on with his life, started Pagar.me with Pedro, and at some point they needed very good back-end engineers, and he thought of Jonathan immediately. He said, there's this kid that I met on this online forum, and he was a little bit of a liar, but maybe he's more mature now. Let's reach out, let's see what he's doing. And he reached out and he said, hey, would you like to connect? We're working on this thing in Sao Paulo, this online processor, payments processor. And he said, oh yeah, sure, let's chat. And I was like, by the way, how old are you now? And he said, well, I'm 16 now. That was 5 years later. It's like, wait, so you were really 11 at the time? I was like, yes, I'm telling you I was 11. Completely self-taught. And he barely finished high school, Jonathan. It's just a brilliant, brilliant guy. So we look for stories and concrete facts about what people have accomplished rather than credentials or diplomas. And we really encourage that, and we praise that, And of course, there are some limitations, there are some challenges, as you asked, of what we face. And the very first one is visas, right? I just got my H-1B. I was under the STEM extension for the OPT, and I just got 8 people applied for the H-1B in the company, and luckily I was the only one who got it. And I could very well be one of the 7 who didn't. So you kind of never know what's gonna happen. And for us, maybe the answer was, why don't we build a remote office at somewhere like Canada? But then it comes the challenge of culture. Culture for us is a very big factor. So we might find someone who's really, really good technically, but if they're not a cultural fit, we will not touch them because we want everyone to be aligned and driven by the same goals, and not in a way that they think the same, but at least they have these cultural points really well aligned. And if you're curious, they're dream big, so people who are really ambitious for themselves and for the company. 2, ownership mentality. So we don't want people who will just kind of come from 5 to 9 and that's their job, and then they will turn off their phones. We want people who truly live this mission and this dream with us. And people who will, you know, kind of hold on to their equity, and we like to compensate with equity and to reward with equity if people are performing. And 3 is be a fixer, so people who will find a way, because it's so easy to find excuses when you're early stage and everything's going wrong and nobody really care about you yet. But, you know, just like people who will find a way regardless. An ethical way, obviously, but will, you know, give their best into accomplishing that goal in a creative way. And 4, it's ask why. So, you know, people who will want to understand the problem deeply and really well, and who will, you know, there's a metaphor that we use, which is never take down a fence without knowing why it was put there in the first place. But you should really understand at Brex why that fence was put there, because maybe it was a different context and maybe you have a better way to do things now. So this is like sort of what we're looking people. And the remote office wasn't necessarily an answer right away, because it would be very difficult, especially at an early stage, to keep that strong culture. So we're still battling with that, with like visa issues for a lot of our people. And we have a lot of Americans, and we've always admired 2 specific things about America. One's like sense of community and how strong that is here, and how people come together when facing challenges. And 2, like that this country is not afraid of working hard, and that's something we've always valued and we've always wanted to bring to Brex. But there are these challenges that I just explained to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I wanted to ask you, you touched on it, like, there's no one working remotely?
There's nobody working remotely at Brex. Everyone's at our office, 115 Sansom Street, close to Market Street in San Francisco, and everyone is there. There's no remote employees, there's no remote contractors. Everyone's on the same floor. Nobody has closed rooms, so the flow of ideas is completely open, and that has helped so much, because then customer support can listen at what's going on in sales, and engineering can kind of listen at what's going on in support and have a better idea of what to fix right away. And that's another challenge where we got this office for an 18 months lease, and it's now 6, and we already need to move because we grew at a faster rate than we were expecting, number of employees wise. And we were looking for a space that would be still kind of relatively close to the center of everything, the center of the city, but that allows everyone to be in one same open space for as long as we can, so we can continue to have that very free flow of ideas and interaction that's so important to us.
Another question I had, you talked about it's everyone's job to recruit. Do you reward people for that, or is it just part of your job description?
It's part of the ownership mentality value. It's just something that we strongly encourage. And it's seen by the employees, not as something that is kind of like, oh, whatever, like if I have time, I'll do it. It's almost like a badge of praise. If you bring your friend, it's recognized. We, at our all hands meeting, which is every Wednesday, we have, bring some main theme, and we also bring the highlights of the week. We introduce new employees, which now has been like 5 or 6 new people per week. And we say, oh, and by the way, this, Marcela was a referral from Larissa, and people applaud, and they're like, wow, and this is already the 4th person that Larissa brings. Way to go, guys, remember to bring your people. So we really praise that. There's no really prize. It's a lot more, like just bringing it to the attention of everyone, and that's, since day one, built the importance of doing that. That's something that we value and recognize.
I like it a lot. I have to run.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Yes.
My question is about your Wednesday.
All hands?
When people ask the questions to y'all about anything, what's a time that didn't go as smoothly as you thought it would? Like a question you got that you were like, this was the one thing we hope no one can bring.
So there's nothing that we hope people won't bring up, because we're very open about our decisions. We open our board decks to everyone. Whenever there's a board meeting, We just post the board decks at Dropbox, and everyone has access to. Every time there is a board meeting, the following Wednesday is when we do the exact same presentation that we did to the board, to the entire company. There are no secrets. If you feel that there is a decision that was made that was not a smart one, that's encouraged to, for someone to speak up, and that's praised. When there are things that, sometimes we like questions that we like less, if you will, are questions when are not focusing on the right things necessarily. So sometimes people will ask, we still have conference rooms that are called conference room 1, conference room 2, conference room 3, because we want to focus all of our energy on what matters. And I see that sometimes people have very creative names for their conference rooms, and we've had 2 times people ask, when are we going to name our conference rooms? And you're like, why are you focusing on that? There's so many interesting things going on in the company. Why are you asking these questions? Sure, we're gonna answer, but let's not spend too much time on that. So these are the kind of questions that we like less. Or what was another one that, or where is the new office? When are we moving to the new office? Where is it going to be? Is there going to be a ball pit in the new office? And all of these questions that we consider to be, not focusing on what matters. But there's no question about decision making or about decisions that were made, or sometimes tough decisions that were made, or around fundraising, around all of these things that we will not answer or that we will hope nobody asks. We like these questions, and we like to show that we are transparent and that you can speak up, disagree whenever you want. And we've gained so much from allowing that. Yes.
So I have a question. So I just graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have great experience. I worked in customer facing team, did an internship at Tesla. But right now I'm in that process where I'm trying to get hired at a company. And just yesterday I had my 18th rejection because I'm an international student. I am on OPT status, and my status expires in 33 days. Do you have anything?
Is that the STEM? The STEM OPT?
Yes.
Your
The
own PT.
unemployment, the unemployment thing. If you
90 days.
90 days, so the 90 days will end 33 days from now.
Oh, I see. So you already worked 3 years?
No, this is like the beginning of my OPT.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you need to find a job.
Yes. So I'm just trying to figure out how do I do this. I think I have great experience. I've done interviews with really good companies, but then every time, as soon as they find out I'm international and I work, we can't do it.
I see.
Do you have any, how do I approach this? Is there something that I can feed into their heads that I don't worry about? Just wondering with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was extremely lucky to go to kind of like these companies when I was doing my internships that were owned by Brazilians. It's just, I know it's kind of easier when you kind of have that stamp, and when senior leadership's also kind of struggling with the visa status and all that. But I've seen friends, great friends, Class Marshall at Columbia University, who was at JP Morgan and had to go back to Brazil after 1 year because the company just can't sponsor the visa. And sometimes it's not even the problem with the company. It's they really have limitations on what they can offer, what they can sponsor. And it's we have someone in-house who does that for us because, as I said, we're such an international company, and that's so much energy and effort and money that goes into that. So, sometimes it's not the companies not wanting international people, it's really the regulation that's being tough around visa. I think that you need to make a decision of what you want. If you want to stay in the United States, you have to start your OPT soon. I would get a job anywhere that, not necessarily a big name right now, or necessarily the place where you feel like you would be the most happy, but somewhere you could contribute with, and that is probably smaller right now, and you can join and get yourself on that OPT, which you have 3 years of, right? Apply, get your license, and then have these 3 years to gain experience and pursue something that will probably be more long-term. And be attentive to all the opportunities for visa, for H-1B, and et cetera. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you mentioned something that really resonated with me when it comes to walking the fine line of politics in an area like Silicon Valley. It's very much centralized. As big as it is also
here or in San Francisco?
Here in
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've gone around the country the past months in Boston, New York, Pittsburgh, Austin, and it's amazing how vibrant the communities in these other cities are and how strongly they come together because it's, you know, the resources are not as abundant necessarily as in Silicon Valley, so sometimes it's an even closer community and people are even more eager and they know that they're kind of further away from where all the maybe funding and resources are, so they really grab their opportunities with their teeth, to metaphorically speak. And wherever, you know, in the end, I think that you can only gain from wanting to be different and challenge the conventional and allow for a free flow of ideas. And whoever tries to, as I said, prize comfort over truth and block certain ideas or certain points of view will only in the long term lose. So it's definitely an opportunity for these cities that are still more diverse culturally and in terms of opinions and backgrounds to come together and try to really bring a debate that will sparkle, you know, even more innovation and forward thought. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming and have a great rest of Austin Startup Week.